As a program that a city's doing to this scale, it's completely unique. I think it's one of a kind.
Yeah, this is Stump School. It's the best.
Speaking of local, this table, I lived at the house that this tree was in the front yard.
Whenever trees in populated areas fall or are removed, they're usually chipped for mulch or landfilled. But a growing movement of public servants and woodworkers are giving them a much more valuable second life. This is urban wood, our most sustainable resource. In the heart of America's forested mid-Atlantic region, about a decade ago now, Sean Preston began a daunting job: find uses for the thousands of trees that had, for years, been brought here whenever one came down on public land anywhere in the city of Baltimore.
Folks that were championing to create a program like this in Baltimore City knew that out of the 9,000 tons of material that was coming here to Camp Small every year, that there was a lot of valuable material that could generate enough revenue to support a program. And it was just sort of trying to figure out how to market that material, who to sell it to. You know, the early idea was to just sell as is logs to local sawmills. Unfortunately, when I started, the demand wasn't there for that. So I applied for a grant and got a sawmill. I figured if we couldn't, outsource that, we would just do it in-house. And that would allow for even more within the program. We would be able to employ more people to create something that was taking local material and having a program that was putting those materials back into a local economy. And, having a background of woodworking and fabrication and knowing a lot of people in that field in this area, I felt very confident that there would be a strong demand for those materials if they were available. And that's proven to be the case.
Researchers in New York and the U.S. Department of Agriculture calculate that every year in the U.S., our urban areas lose so many trees, mostly to natural causes, that they could generate 46 million tons of high-quality usable wood, equivalent to 7.2 billion board feet of hardwood lumber.
So when I talk to folks about programs like this to encourage them or to help them see the value that can be captured. So rot-resistant species like black locust we use for stools and outdoor play spaces. We'll use sugar maples for lumber. We're still getting nice ash logs. That's a good one. We'll use every bit of white oak, like small limbs to big trunks. And if they're straight, they're great for lumber. If they're all crazy and knotty, we can process them into big timbers that we make big benches out of. This is the high value black walnut. Before this program was here, a log like this would have just sat here, rotted away. The city would have paid a contractor, they would have grabbed it, they would have chipped it all up on site and hauled out the grindings. This log is maybe 8 feet long, and it's probably about 28-inch diameter. But it's not very uncommon that we'll get these that'll be 30 inches and 10 feet long. We could sell that log just as it is, straight, just sell it for about $700 with no effort whatsoever. The materials come in here like it always does. All we're doing is the truck's pulling up and we're grabbing it and putting it on the truck. Now with having a program in place that can saw it, and dry it, we're able to saw and dry this into slabs at 2 inches thick. And now that $700 log has become something that's valued at $12, $13, $15 a board foot. But then we take all that kiln dried material and we sell it to a local furniture maker who makes big conference tables. And that log that's 30 inches in diameter and 10 foot long yields about 10 conference tables. And each one of those conference tables costs $10,000, generating $100,000 of economic value for the community. It's creating jobs, it's creating businesses. I mean, look, and we got one, we got two, we got three.
To give industrious people like Sean a chance to start cutting-edge programs, the city leverages a creative funding approach.
It started with a $99,000 loan from the city's finance department through the Innovation Fund to hire somebody to come in. That was me. Gave me money to rent equipment. I screened through lots of old legacy piles of material and created a compost and sold the compost. And then was also able to identify a stand of trees that were coming down, had those trees turned into lumber that went into a building project. And through those two efforts was able to pay back the loan within a year,
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
So that set us up on a really good track record Then we did a much larger, basically $1 million loan, and we received that. We used it to get our excavator with a 360 grapple, our skid steer with multiple attachments, the vacuum kiln, pieces of machinery in the wood shop. So a lot of things that have really helped us grow. You know, we've used grant funding from the state to help support jobs here and workforce development programs. And then of course we do have a general fund budget. I've been lucky in so many ways, having support from the city on like lots of levels in finance and in law and in risk, and other agencies supporting it have all helped it get to where it is. I would have just been stuck without support from all those different levels. And in something like a city this large with 600,000 people and, you know, and agencies that are so big, you really need people to understand what you're doing and support what you're doing. Also, just outside of the city, the U.S. Forest Service has their urban field station, and they have been a strong supporter of this program through research. Of course, like when I came into this job, I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with all this material. When I thought about doing a sawmill, what does that look like? There are already pamphlets out there on you know, creating an urban sawmill. Those pamphlets said like, don't do it.
Why?
I think because there are a lot of challenges, and that pamphlet was maybe 15, at this point, maybe 15 years old, 20 years old even. Ideas have come into place that have changed that mindset. There is more demand and audience for this material. There is more support to have things made locally and support local initiatives. There's equipment now that like can process these kinds of materials with lower cost and less risks. You know, when I first started and I approached those area sawmills about it, they didn't want this material because trees that grow in urban environments and in difficult, you know, conditions grow funky and don't often meet the grade standards for typical lumber. You'd be dealing with a lot of waste. Another thing is the metals, you know, the foreign objects and the materials. Hitting a 5D nail in a piece of wood, a tree growing around a fence, trees being filled with concrete. I mean, lag bolts that are 12 inches long and an inch thick. So like something like that can cause thousands of dollars of damage in a large sawmill. But with us on the little bandsaw mill, it's a $20 blade. And there's very little risk of injury when we're dealing with just a blade snapping.
Despite being one of the most advanced programs like it in the world, Camp Small had an Achilles heel that was tragically exposed on a windy night last December.
This fire has burned so hot, it's so deep-seated into the logs at this point, we're actually worried about these wood piles collapsing.
We were in the middle of a drought in December. We had like 30-mile-an-hour sustained winds that day, but it started in the back of an old wood pile, and within 2 hours, it was just out of control. About 7 years of excess logs, the stuff that we're not processing. About 20,000 tons of logs sitting out there, and they all burnt up that night.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it was devastating. It was 60-foot flames. You know, I left that night thinking that all of this was going to go and be gone. What's tomorrow gonna look like? Do I have enough energy in me to do this all over again? Working like for 9 years to develop this thing, and then one night it's just gone. But the effort was great. I mean, we had 150 firefighters here, and it's that fight that kept this stuff safe. It burned the logs up until there. Then there was a giant wood chip pile that were right up against the logs. So it became a fight for the firefighters to keep that stuff so soaked that the fire couldn't jump to the wood chips or to a brush pile that we also had. And that was amazing that they were able to keep it from that. Lots of thanks to Baltimore City and the fire department for their efforts to keep our program here.
Housing going that way, with a school here, with other places there, with Imbers flying in the air, with a light rail system, with a bridge, an interstate highway, and none of that was impacted because of the fine work of the firefighters that were out here. That's the story today.
It's undetermined from the investigation what actually caused the fire. It is highly likely that it was accidental arson. I highly recommend any city that's putting a program in place like this to learn how to like properly sort things. We didn't have like water coming back to our facilities, so there were no easy accessible hydrants. So fighting a fire of that size without those kinds of things was really challenging.
Now, nearly a year after this near-miss catastrophe, Camp Small is thriving. Appointments can be made to shop for affordable lumber, pick up raised bed kits or mulch, and for a nominal fee, people can cut a load of log rounds for firewood once a month.
The one thing that was happening here when I started, which I was told I had to shut down immediately, was people were just coming in and grabbing logs, and they were coming in with chainsaws and like chainsawing, and like no one was watching, and like, yeah. So they were like, you got to stop that. You can't sell stuff if you're allowing people to come in and just take stuff. And some people were pretty bummed, you know, like often the response I got was, I've been coming here for 20 years and you're telling me I can't anymore? Who are you? We created a liability waiver to allow residents to come in and operate chainsaws. You pay a membership of $60 a year and you can come once a month with your pickup truck and load up a whole pickup truck load of log rounds cut from this area. You know, you have to wear PPE. So right now we got about 50 members that come. So this is constantly depleted and restocked with good hardwood for high BTU wood for burning, you know.
Awesome.
And for $60 a year, you can heat your home through a pretty rough winter. And one thing we try to do is, if somebody comes here and they've got an idea, the first one that sort of struck me when I started was somebody coming in wanting mushroom logs. And I hadn't thought, oh yeah, you can grow mushrooms on these logs. Shiitakes and oyster mushrooms, and I've learned which species are used for different mushrooms. The word spreads and it grows, and more people find out that we're here and that we're open, helping people have access to this material, having processing in place so that we can create the thing that they need. We are all square with our innovation fund. We have paid back everything, you know, that we've bought. So we're looking to make some more purchases.
What are you thinking of next?
We are going to get a slab flattener. You know, if a slab has some movement in it when it comes out of the kiln and we put it through the planer, you know, it goes through the planer, but it comes out and it still has that movement. There was one company locally that was able to provide that service. They're no longer providing that service, so we're going to provide that. This is our offcut pile. It's 25 cents a linear foot. So we have a lot of hobbyists. This is a white oak board,
Yeah.
So it's a nice board. It looks like it's 10 feet long, so it would cost $2.50.
Cool.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, that's a local Baltimore artist.
All right.
Who's getting ready to have a big show at our Visionary Museum in downtown Baltimore. He loves pieces like this. These are big Zelkova chunks, so he'll take these and carve them into really unique objects.
With Camp Small's central location, it should continue to divert more and more from the waste stream.
You know, 9,000 tons of material comes here every year. About 4,000 tons are logs. 20% of them are like good enough to saw. So that's sort of our inventory. But we're getting to where we're exhausting the supply. You know, it'd be great to eventually get to where the city has processing in place for all types of wood debris, and we can accept, you know, up much more of it. Because it is a challenge for residents, you know, that are doing work on their trees at home and then have all this wood stuff and don't know what to do with it. And public waste agencies are, you know, have restrictions on putting wood waste into landfills, but there's a lack of utilization efforts on how to deal with that stuff and recycle that stuff. We're trying to catch up with the policies that are being put in place for good reason, but the infrastructure is not there yet to support it.
How does that outreach work in terms of making people throughout the city aware that this resource is here?
Yeah, I mean, we've been really fortunate to have a lot of support on that level, people spreading the word, a lot of really good publicity from local media. I think it was in 22 or 23, we were on the cover of the Baltimore Sun on the Sunday issue. Our city schools has a sustainability director that we've worked with to help them understand what we can do, create documents that can be shared with all of our products. And, you know, we have pricing that's just for public projects and public agencies. So a teacher is going to stand behind this podium, and then there's going to be enough benches to seat 90 people, so a whole like class assembly. This is at the Commodore John Rogers School in Baltimore, and it's under a beautiful stand of oaks. You know, these tables going to a forest preschool that's going to have that education element to it, you know, and it's going to be able to explain to those kids that live in these urban areas that go to this school that like these products came out of trees growing in their neighborhoods, you know, which is pretty fascinating. It's something that, I mean, most adults don't even think about that, you know, and so having a generation starting to think that way at an early age, it's going to make a big difference.
One of the places where that difference is happening is Keister Elementary in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Art teacher Brooke Imber has transformed numerous parts of her campus into natural classrooms.
This is the Mindfulness Meadow. This was a 2-school-year long project. We got a $30,000 grant from the Department of Forestry. I got to collaborate with Jeremy, with Public Works, and Mike. And
Brooke has been empowered by Harrisonburg's Green Space Manager, Jeremy Harold, and Joe Lennon of the Virginia Department of Forestry. They've made the whole city an incubator for urban wood projects and generously spent an entire day showing me around.
this is the most centrally located outdoor space that we have. An area where kids could sit and relax, in hammocks maybe, where they can de-stress and walk and center themselves. We wanted a conversation area, so that's what Eagle Scout Circle is. All of this wood is from the Urban Wood program. So these tables are so beautiful, and I wish I could have them at my house, and my elementary students don't have any idea how beautiful and lucky they are to have them. This is part of the urban wood.
It is. So that's oak that came off our golf course.
Make all kinds of things.
Yes.
Many of these items were paid for with a $30,000 grant from the state plus $5,000 from the city, although Brooke volunteered her time, as did many of her helpers, like college students from nearby James Madison University.
Jeremy made this beautiful chair. We were able to get these gazebos, which will eventually have plants climbing all the way up to create some shade.
The grant helped get water hydrant to the garden. They hadn't had water up here. So this was a pin oak tree in the neighborhood. It had bacterial leaf scorch. The homeowners decided it needed to come down. This piece was cut into a live edge slab, like we've seen tables, to create the hobbit door to enter the nature trail.
Oh, this is awesome. Wow. Yeah, this is Stump School. It's the best. It is the best. This was like the OG getting started with outdoor learning at Keister in terms of like wooded areas. So this whole area was just like what you see right there, like just straight forest with a lot of overgrown. Another local organization, Vine and Fig, helped us get some volunteers to help out with establishing the trail, and we just kind of like put flags around and we're like, this could be a walkway. So that's our stick fort. Yeah, so this will fit a whole class. It makes my life so much more fun to be able to be out here than in like a cramped classroom that's overstimulating, and kids can have space and you can hear birds and it's great. I think a common anxiety that some people might have regarding outdoor learning is that, oh, if I take them outside, they're all gonna go crazy and be out of control. Yeah. Where in fact, it's just a way calmer environment, and they know it's a privilege to go out here. And as long as you set the expectations, it's like, okay, if we are going to stand and jump on logs or stumps, we're gonna go do that in Adventure Avenue. Or you can like stand on one and pose if we're doing like a figure drawing lesson. And that's when they get super excited. But for the most part, they know like, these are just like the tables inside. They're just way more beautiful and fun to hang out at. And kids that like prefer to have their own space will sometimes go to like that table in the back that just kind of want their peace and quiet. Over there's the fairy forest, and then Adventure Avenue is back that direction. That's kind of like a parkour park in the woods with a dragon. You have to see it, yeah. They'll like do parkour off of here. Those stumps are cemented into the ground, so they're stable. So those are great, like if you want to balance and, you know, hop around, floor is lava type stuff. So this is obviously a main road, but we have a whole section of our school where this is the closest outdoor area that they can go. So that's why we have this curvy fence, which just kind of signifies to kids like, That's as far as you can go in this learning space. And then we have our pollinator garden over here. Public Works will come and work with the students, and they'll get to help do some maintenance, put some new plants in, and learn about the differences between some native flowers that we have.
So now you're the outdoor
I'm the district's outdoor learning coordinator.
for the whole school system.
We're trying to figure out currently with our district some sort of maintenance plan so that if I were by any chance to like not be at the school, like how would all of these spaces survive?
Her dedication was recognized last fall with the Society of Arboriculture's Gold Leaf Award.
It's like a Tree People Award. It feels really nice to be recognized and honored for something I do in the school system.
Earlier that morning, Jeremy and Joe showed me one of the main purposes for starting the program, making use of all the trees falling victim to the emerald ash borer, the invasive insect that has decimated the ash population across the U.S. since its introduction in 2002.
You know, it kills every ash tree that it comes to. It doesn't matter the age or the health of the tree. It arrived here in 2017, and we knew we were in trouble because our park system here in Harrisonburg, we had 1,500 ash trees. The Virginia Department of Forestry had, the vision and the foresight to create an urban wood program, and I had no idea what urban wood was even, the concept was even about until I went to one of their workshops. Here on Court Square, we had some ash trees against the bank. We took those down first because they were going to die. For safety concerns, the trees needed to come down sooner than later. As we take a tree down, our goal is to replant a tree somewhere in Harrisonburg, all native, and we want to plant less than 10% of any one species. So then when the next bug or disease comes through Harrisonburg, then we won't lose so many trees again. It's kind of like the chestnut, the American chestnut story. So we're losing all these trees. Researchers are trying to figure out how they can make a tree that is resistant to EAB. But with trees, it takes so many years because of their growth. So it's going to take decades to try to figure out how we can, get our ash trees back. One theory is because of lack of food, if we don't have as many ash trees, the emerald ash borer population will crash. We won't have as many beetles around to affect the trees. And you can see this ash tree here, it's got seed on it. So, we could potentially pick that seed. It has the little wing seed that fall around, and that's why there's so many ash trees in our park system. This tree right here is kind of declining. And sometimes trees will actually put out more seeds, so then it's trying to reproduce itself.
You say it's declining. How can you tell? Because they're dead branches?
See the color? It's kind of off color. It's kind of yellow.
Yep.
There's thinning. There's dead branches.
Yep.
In Virginia, we have mad trees. We have the M is for maple, A is for ash, and D is for dogwood. So the branching, the leaves, the branching are opposite. So when we look up in the branching, see how the branches come off side by side?
Yeah.
There's only a few trees in Virginia that have branching that's side by side. So even where the buds come out, see how they're side by side?
Yep.
So on maple, ash, and dogwood, the buds are straight across from one another. That's called opposite branching. And then all the oaks and stuff are alternate branching. See this dead branch?
Yep.
And see that snake looking, that's what the emerald ash borer, so they're feeding in that vascular system, and that's what it's cutting off the flow, the nutrients and water flow. So actually it's strangling the tree to death because the flow of nutrients up and down the tree is cut off. So the vascular tubes are cut off. So that's why the beetles will be in here for a handful of years, and it takes a while for it to eventually kill the tree completely. The Department of Forestry helped us treat these trees, and so we've gotten 7 more years out of mature tree canopy here, so it's been
And it's great to have shade structures like this, but nothing beats sitting under a shady tree.
When we go over to the elementary school, we can walk in the woods and it'll be like a 10-degree drop.
There he is.
One of the myths I think that exists about Harrisonburg is that some people think, oh, they planted all these ash trees and now they all got killed. Well, that's not true. A lot of the ash trees, in the Harrisonburg area were just naturally seeded in. And as a result of that, they had a big mortality problem when the emerald ash borer came. The emerald ash borer is here to stay. It's not going to go away. There's going to be probably years of lower populations. There may not be that crescendo of population that we saw at one time just because we lost a lot of the ash resource. Who knows? Forest scientists may be able to use CRISPR and develop a genetically resistant ash tree by doing gene modification. But that is kind of up in the future, and we're working on it.
Everything we do with making lumber or making a piece of furniture out of this lumber, trapping that carbon in instead of going to the burn pile or going to the chipper. The backstory to all this too is what really sells me, because you know exactly where the tree comes from, and you can pass that along. And to honor that tree is, it's been here and served all this time, and who knows what it's seen, and witnessed, and to hold that legacy is it's just cool to me. So.
Two experts at telling the story of Harrisonburg ash are woodworkers Rhett Miles and Ned Gearing.
Making this cut, and then that cut overlaps this cut, and then that cut overlaps this cut, it just completely separates the circulatory system of the tree. And it makes it so the leaves are up here and the roots are down here, and they're not connected anymore. That's the live part of the tree. Everything else is just the skeleton.
When people hear a bug is killing a tree, they think, oh man, that wood's just going to be riddled with bug holes. But the emerald ash boring beetle pretty much just makes those tracks under the bark, and that just kills the tree's process.
I didn't know that until I had worked here for 2 or 3 years and just continued education.
Yeah. Huh.
And I've been a tree guy since I was a teenager.
Working for a landscaping company, or how did that
No,
work?
the science department at Harrisonburg High School was just top notch. Took earth science and ecology from one specific instructor who inspired me, and I just kind of fell in love with it. And then woodworking and love of trees just kind of go hand in hand. And sometimes it's like, that tree looks like it's on its way out. I wonder what it looks like on the inside.
Some of these slabs furnished Jill McMullen's Broad Porch Cafe downtown.
They did the whole merch shelf. It's fun, it's versatile, we can change the shelving up if we want. Just makes a good entryway. This was kind of the, piece de resistance. So when you look at it front on, it just looks like slats, but if you get the sideways view, you can tell that it's kind of asymmetrically done. So that was really fun. Thanks. One of the things I love about ash is when it's first cut, it has this really beautiful whitish undertone, and a lot of times when you see wood finished, it changes the actual color. And so working with them, and you can fill him in on this, I really wanted to keep the integrity of the color, so that was really important. So they ended up going with this finish.
A white stain. We put a white stain on it, and it kept the material looking more natural in color.
Yeah.
If we just put a clear coat on it, it would have taken this very white wood and made it very golden yellow.
Well, my dad is also a woodworker, so I grew up having an appreciation for wood and the smell and just being around it, and I feel like bringing as many natural elements into a space as you can, it just helps the space feel more inviting, hence all the plants. The benches are all ash also. Yeah, if this place ever closes down, I'm taking them all with me.
Back at their masterfully organized Rocktown urban woodshop, Ned and Rhett were problem-solving a mock-up for a hidden door to a safe room.
Here and here, and on the other side of the cabinet is a safe room.
So a hidden door
with a vault door.
Most of the commission projects we have for local material is using local material.
This is chestnut that came out of an old barn, and this stuff was probably milled 100 years ago. Here's a good example of the urban wood. There's a bullet enlarged in the side of that we sawed through. Everything in here is yard trees. Everything came from essentially the city of Harrisonburg and Rockingham County. There's a couple outliers. We've gone on a couple road trips to get a couple things, but almost 100% of this is local. It's an otherwise waste product. If it weren't for us and people like us putting an effort forward to reclaim that material and prevent it from going to the landfill and being chipped for mulch or just being buried in the landfill.
People don't realize how much.
The huge quantity.
We only collect maybe 1%. The tree service guys are always looking for a place to put it.
If we get involved and we want to take the large trunk of the tree, they are more than happy to be like, we don't have to handle the largest, heaviest part of the tree?
Yeah.
You guys, right on. And homeowners as well. When they have to have a tree come down to disease, wind damage, or construction project, they don't want to see that tree that they have loved for years and years go to waste. Sometimes they want something made out of it to go back into their home, and we've done multiple projects like that. They want to see this tree that they've loved forever have a second life.
Yeah, we've got all kinds, oaks, maples, ash, walnut, cherry, hickory.
Do they work different? Do they?
Sure. Oh yeah. Different densities, different grain structure and cell structure. You can have two that look very similar and work very differently.
A lot of people will say hickory built the United States. It's the hammer and the axe handles. It's the guys that were felling trees across the country when everything was the frontier. And when we started stick building homes, it was the handles of the hammers. And it's the properties of hickory that make it a good axe handle or a good hammer handle.
Everybody's heard of red oak and white oak. Very different properties in the fact that white oak is good as an exterior material naturally. Red oak would rot pretty fast as an exterior material. It's just very similar. They're in the same species, very different properties.
When I first began researching this project, I was curious whether urban wood could replace stick lumber for home building, but I quickly learned this would be hard to do. For one, homes are built with fast-growing softwoods that are easy to cut and drive nails and screws into, whereas urban wood logs are almost always slow-growing hardwoods, as their greater value makes them worth the extra effort to acquire and process. And two, because building codes require wood for occupied structures to be graded, whereas the things urban wood is usually used to build, like furniture, do not need to go through this costly extra step. Ned added some depth to this point.
Your common dimensional lumber that we're building, your stick-built homes, it's a plantation crop. From the soil that it grows in to the lumber yards they're selling it, these are international conglomerates, big stakeholders that urban wood's just not going to compete with. What we're looking to do is provide a resource that is a closed circuit cycle. We're turning something that is an otherwise waste product into something that can be used for your dining table, the facade in your local business, a park bench downtown, where everybody's experiencing and seeing something, and the person who owns and keeps that piece can continue to tell that story instead of being like, oh, I bought it on Wayfair.
Exactly.
And we had a project, we were able to put the GPS coordinates from where the tree grew on the side of the finished product, which was like 1.75 miles from where it is now living the rest of its life. You're reducing that carbon footprint by reducing the amount of fuel and transportation that it's had to do as well.
Yeah, never saw a UPS truck or a FedEx truck or a freight delivery or, it was, I think the one table was 31 miles or something like that.
And that's, like I said, through the entire process of the manufacturer to deliver.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's not a lot.
Their success at sourcing material shows the effectiveness of Harrisonburg's program, which Jeremy was inspired to set up after hearing one of Joe's talks.
Joe has a slide on his presentation. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. My part was trying to put the puzzle together. All the plans really support this at the top, at city council to down to the city manager to my director. So that allows me to give time throughout the week to work on this. And we have a sustainability manager also. I work side by side with him. The program started in Parks and Rec, moved over to Public Works about 5 years ago, and then that just really catapulted the program. Now I get to work with our engineers and our construction management team at Public Works. We're building a brand new road. 60 trees had to come down. We try to utilize the whole tree. The smaller branches we turn into wood chips that go back into our pollinator program. Any branches that come off the tree that can make a stick of firewood, we can sell that wood back to the community. The larger logs are the big story. We want to make sure that they cut that trunk of that tree into 8 foot 6 inches or 10 foot 6 inches because that's what lumber comes in. So, a lot of contractors will just chunk up that wood into 4 foot chunks.
Just not thinking about it.
Not thinking about it ahead of
Get it on the
time.
truck.
Yep, get it on the truck, get it out of there, and haul it to the landfill. Our goal is 0 waste to the landfill.
How close to that goal are you guys?
I think pretty close.
Another innovator is at the University of Virginia, a forested campus where trees come down all the time. While earning a master's in landscape architecture, Andrew Spears looked into making use of this most sustainable resource.
First, it was just my independent study. At one point, it was an internship, kind of a passion project. You know, different grants have come and gone.
Today, Andrew's UVA Sawmilling, one of the first urban wood programs on a college campus, is gaining traction. During my visit, Wade, a local sawyer, was helping mill a giant log into dimensional lumber for Thomas Jefferson's Monticello estate, just down the road. A main goal is to provide architecture students, who are Virginia's future builders, the chance to work with reclaimed trees to experiment with potential applications.
A lot of our dimensional material, too, is headed straight for students at UVA to use for free, and they can use it for whatever personal or academic project they need. Wow. We've created a little bit of a funny bubble, right? Because students will ask for, you know, such and such quantity of a material, and they'll use it for something, and you're like, that is totally cool because it is this opportunity. But otherwise, do you realize that was a, you know, $300 this that you just made? And they don't. But that's part of the cool thing, because otherwise a lot of this would just be trash. We were accepting donations from different places, or, you know, the Fab Lab manager would, you know, go and buy wood from a lumber yard or from, you know, Lowe's. But having this access to very local, you know, multi-species material of a variety of qualities and cuts and sizes, I think it has really changed the dynamic of making in the woodshop. I spent a lot of time in the woodshop as a student, and so that's a big part of the motivation.
Andrew is also experimenting by trying to improve on the current industry standard solar kiln, as drying is a critical step in any lumber operation.
I was able to lead a design and build seminar with some other co-instructors, and we took the classic Virginia Tech solar kiln, which, you know, for the last 15 years has been pretty much what everybody has built to passively dry their wood. Really low cost, kind of homegrown, but science-backed solution, which is really awesome. Examined what it might be like to redesign that. One is a timber frame, and then two, adapted to very large material. So that's gonna help us dry the big slabs that we cut. It is not completely done yet, so.
Oh, no worries.
This was designed and built by students here at UVA. It's painted black inside. The goal is it's gonna get really hot. We built a Virginia Tech solar kiln right at the beginning back in 2020, and we've seen temperatures of 135, 140 in there in the Virginia summer. These are brackets for some large solar panels to go on, to then to power the fans. So totally off-grid. These 6x6s will come out here and be a platform to roll our giant lumber carts in and out of the kiln. So this is like the same shape, but it's bigger in every dimension. It's twice as long, and then we put the doors on the end. So that's part of kind of the experiment here, is we're saying we made the solar collection square footage much bigger, and we made the envelope bigger. So we're hoping to be able to heat this air sufficiently to then, you know, help us dry out really thick stuff. We've got a moisture meter. We'll put sample boards in there, and we'll figure out what kind of job we're doing at actually drying it.
Would one of the end goals be to publish those results?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
By going out on a limb to set up their operations, these dedicated tree people have shown us that it's possible to efficiently use this abundant, completely sustainable resource. And for anyone inspired to start an urban wood program, the goal should be focused and simple. Get local logs to local woodworkers.
When I go to like other cities and like I talk about what it is that we're doing, we are doing so much of the pie, you know? And that's not always necessary. If a city has smaller sawmill operations that they can just sell logs to, that's an easy way to go. Working with their contractors to identify what trees and how long the logs need to be, and aggregating those materials so that those local businesses can access them. You know, a big challenge for a lot of municipalities is selling these materials, establishing prices and justification for that, you know, making sure that everything is like fair across the board, that everyone has equal access to those materials. That has to be a very strong focus for us from the beginning. And it kind of helps formulate a program that is for the people, it's for the public.